Hey guys, we're here at MyRecipes making pie dough and pumpkin pie filling ahead of time. We have just watched Real Simple go live today as they made a pumpkin pie from scratch, and our other sister brand Extra Crispy just showed us how to turn Thanksgiving leftovers into dirty rice. And so we're next. We're with our sister brands all day, showing you how to make Thanksgiving ahead of time and prep for the big day, because it's a huge cooking day and we want you to stress less and be able to knock it out. And so there is pie all over the place today because pie is super essential to Thanksgiving. It's the end, it's dessert, it's the best part, and we're here. So join our editor Darcy Lenz, show you how to make pie dough ahead of time and pie filling and freeze it so you can have it ready to go on the big day.
Okay, so we're actually going to start with pie dough that I prepped yesterday, and it's just been sitting in the fridge. And this is just your basic all butter pastry crust. Now, I know our friends at Real Simple just kind of went over the basics of how to make pie dough, and now I'm going to go over how to make your entire pumpkin pie from scratch and freeze it ahead of time so that all you have to do is pop this sucker in the oven on Thanksgiving Day and bake it. So we're gonna start with this pie dough that I made yesterday, and we're gonna lightly flour a surface here and just roll it out. Now, this is one of the things that most people know. You can make pie dough in advance and freeze it in a nice little disc like this, but you can actually take it one step further, roll it out, get it ready to go in your pie pan, which to me, not that it's hard, but that's one of the more tedious parts, just because that's going to be the moment where you sit there and mess with the little details, make it pretty, all that stuff. So to me, that takes a little bit more time, and I would rather do it in advance, to be honest. So we're going to go ahead and roll this out, the entire shell, and put it in our pie pan and have that ready to go. And then all you do once you've placed your pie dough into your pie plate is wrap it up nice and tight in plastic wrap, and then you have a pre-done shell like you can buy in the freezer section that you made yourself, ready to go for Thanksgiving. And you can do this for, you know, every pie that you plan on making, which is what I have actually done this weekend. So you're just gonna wanna sit here and keep flipping your dough so that it does not stick to your surface. If you start seeing it get a little bit sticky, just add a little bit more flour to the surface, to your hands, to the dough. You just want a nice light coating there. And I think we're gonna add a little bit more flour here. One thing I like to emphasize to folks when you're making your own pie dough at home, it does not have to be perfect. In fact, I don't think in my life of making pie I have ever rolled a perfectly round crust. The key is not that it be perfectly round, but that it be evenly dispersed so that you have an even thinness, because that's going to affect, well, your baking and all of that jazz. And if you have a little tear like this, it's no big deal. You can just patch it right back up. And at this point, I'm just going to keep on rolling this guy in a round-ish sort of shape. Let's see. I'm going to take a second to kind of patch that back together. If I had some water here, that would be helpful. But I was not necessarily planning on tears. But you should always plan ahead. Okay, so this is about a good thinness. And like I said, it does not have to be perfect. If you do experience some little tears, it's no big deal. All you have to do, you can even put it into the pan and then patch them up as soon as you get it in there and kind of just finesse it to the way you want it to be. So if you see, I just rolled the dough up onto my rolling pin, and now I'm gonna unroll it into the pan. And we're just gonna carefully move that a little bit. As you see, not perfect, but a-okay. So what we're gonna do now is just kind of trim the overhang on this crust. I'm just going to use my hand here. I know that's not the prettiest, but all we want to do is trim this so that we kind of have an even-ish border. And those little trimmings we're going to apply to other parts of the crust that, see, like right over here, that need a little more love. And someone wonderful just brought me a little water. So all we have to do is just kind of create a little bit of moisture here to get that to seal.
Play-Doh.
Yeah, it's like Play-Doh.
But real.
And again, I keep saying this, it does not have to be perfect. The point is that it's going to taste good. The visual of it can be a kind of rustic sort of situation. What I tell people most of the time with pie dough is just you really have to kind of feel it out and pay attention to your dough. Do what it needs you to do. And that may not make a ton of sense unless you work with pastry dough a lot, but basically listen to your product and what it's telling you. If it feels like it's dry, it's probably dry. If it's cracking everywhere, it's probably too dry. If it's sticking everywhere, you're going to want to dust it with flour. Okay, and I'm not going to sit here and waste your time with pretty little fluting and all that jazz, but let's just fold this under. That's another important thing. I don't know why people always fold their crust over, but you're going to have a stabler little rim here if you fold your crust under. Nope, that didn't come all the way off. Okay.
So what's the texture feel like right now? And what should you look for?
What should you look for in terms of texture?
Yeah.
So you want a pliable dough, but you also want to see that this is flaky. It does crumble just ever so slightly, and that is just because you have these chunks of butter that are dispersed throughout the dough. The butter is not evenly distributed necessarily. You have large chunks that create these pockets, and that's what gives you a flaky pie crust. But it's malleable, it has moisture to it, but it's not sticking. As you can see, like I can go all up in that, it's not sticking to me, but it's malleable. It is similar to Play-Doh, maybe a little bit less sticky than Play-Doh. All right, haha, isn't that gorgeous? Not really, but it's fine for now. Can someone hand me some plastic wrap? Do we have any? So imagine this is gorgeous. You've done all of these beautiful edges and fluting and all that, and oh my gosh, aren't you wonderful? Imagine that happened. Now all you're gonna do is wrap this sucker with a couple of sheets of plastic wrap, and this is your pie shell that you're gonna use for your pumpkin pie. Thank you.
From the gods.
From the plastic wrap gods.
Any more?
Can I have one other sheet, please? We're just gonna press that down in there and then stick it right up on the pan. And we'll do one more sheet. And there you go. You can do this for as many pies as you plan on baking. You can do the same thing with a graham cracker crust. Just go ahead and press it into the pan, wrap it up, pop it in the freezer, and you're ready to go. So a lot of people might know this trick. It is a huge time saver on the big day, or just if you are regularly baking pies. I try to keep a couple crusts in my freezer at all times just for emergency situations. Now,
can you pre-shape it before you freeze it, or can you do that afterwards?
what do you mean pre-shape?
Like crimp the edges?
Oh yeah, totally. That's what I was saying. You can go ahead and do all your fancy fluting and have that done beforehand, so you're not messing with it on like a big occasion day, and then it will freeze beautifully. And that actually helps when your crust is baking to solidify that butter so intensely again. It turns out for a really gorgeous texture. So now here's the other part. For a classic pumpkin pie, which is, you know, a staple on a lot of families' Thanksgiving tables, you can go ahead and make your filling ahead of time. A lot of people don't know this. Make it ahead of time and freeze it. You just put it in a Tupperware and freeze that stuff. So I'm gonna just go with a very classic pumpkin pie filling. We have 2 cups of pumpkin puree here. And you'll see in a second, I know everyone kind of has their own go-to pumpkin pie recipe, but I tend to go with an easy one, because hey, it's a standby, and I don't care anything about pumpkin pie, to be honest with you, but I know that like it needs to be on the table, so I'm not gonna put a ton of effort into it, but this tastes delicious. And the sweetened condensed milk, especially if you're making this ahead of time, 1 can, how many ounces is this? I think it's 14 ounces. Yeah, 1 14-ounce can of sweetened condensed milk right up in there. If you're making this ahead of time, the sweetened condensed milk is gonna be a little more stable, and it's not gonna leak leach out liquid the way fresh dairy might. So if you're making this ahead of time, that's why I do prefer the sweetened condensed milk, but I also prefer sweetened condensed milk just in general in life because it's delicious. And I usually don't do an excellent job of scraping out the can just so that I have a little bit of a snack for later. So I'm gonna put that to the side. Darcy, snack.
How do you snack on that one?
A spoon.
Oh.
You just scrape it out of the can. It's delicious. Rebecca, live your life. Okay. Add to that 2 eggs. This is seriously the most wonderful dump and stir easy situation. So the reason this works and that you can freeze your pumpkin pie filling ahead of time and have no problem with that whatsoever. This is it essentially is a custard, but the canned pumpkin provides such stability. The sweetened condensed milk provides stability. It's not a stovetop custard that you're going ahead and cooking and then putting in your pie crust. This is baking in the oven completely. So this is just raw filling and it freezes remarkably well. And we're just gonna mix that up there a little bit. All right. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And to that, we're just gonna add a little bit of flavoring here. I'm gonna add half a teaspoon of kosher salt, half a teaspoon of ground ginger, just about. A little bit less than half a teaspoon of ground nutmeg. And then let's go with a heaping half teaspoon of ground cinnamon. I don't love a super spiced pumpkin pie. I want to actually taste the earthiness of the pumpkin and not just have it completely dominated by the spice, but you need at least a little bit of a holiday spice situation in there. Do we have any questions so far?
No, but Aurelie loves condensed milk with saltine crackers for a snack. You ever done that before?
No, but you are my new best friend. That sounds genius.
Yeah, that does sound genius.
Guess who's eating that for dessert tonight? Probably. It's gonna be me. So there you go. Easy as that. I think that took a grand total of 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. That's your pumpkin pie filling. We have our pastry shell all done. And the thing is, you do not want to put your pumpkin pie filling into the pastry shell. You want to freeze this separately in an a nice Tupperware container with a tight fitting lid. If you were to freeze it in your pie shell, you would have issues with your pie shell ultimately sogging out. So just freeze this separately, and then you can whip it back out of the freezer about a day in advance to when you're going to bake the pie, and put it in the fridge, let it completely thaw out, dump this mixture. It will come right back to this consistency, I promise, I've done it. Dump this mixture into your unbaked pie shell. You can leave that in the freezer until you're ready to bake, and then bake according to your recipe as you normally would. And that's exactly what we did. And as you can see, it works out just fine. Just your typical Thanksgiving Day pumpkin pie. And clearly I also skipped the decorative crust on this one as well.
Should we slice it open?
It probably needs to cool a little bit since I just pulled this out of the oven, but if you really want to slice it, we can. But I think that's pretty much that. It's easy peasy, and that's one of your desserts taken care of weeks in advance. Again, clearly I did this right in front of you here. You can do it in about 15 minutes.
Can you freeze it in freezer bags?
Freeze the filling in freezer bags? Yeah, no problem. You can just, it might be a little bit more difficult when you come to thaw it out and then scrape it, just because you can't scrape the inside of a freezer bag in the same way that you could a Tupperware. Yeah, I mean, you can definitely do it. It's just a matter of what you prefer and ease of use, all that jazz.
Nice.
So,
okay, well, thanks guys so much for tuning in. Join Real Simple next as they come back to you with pie, and just keep following along all day long. # time for Thanksgiving. We're here all day, and thanks so much.